Hello, man. Hello, Mgtows. Let's see if this thing's on there. Oh, that sounds a little weak, doesn't it? Doesn't that sound a little weak? I don't know how to get it back. Okay. It'll probably correct itself as we go. Doesn't that sound a little weak? There it goes. I don't know how to get it back. Okay. Okay, we'll deal with it as it goes. I'm going to start off slow here because nobody's in yet. So we'll see how things go here for a second. And if and when people start showing up, they'll start showing up. I can see my sound better now. I think I forgot to adjust the camera to PAL or NAC. I don't know which one works better, but we'll see. Okay, today's Friday. I hope you're all having a great Friday. And today's logic question will be is, if two lesbians have a baby, will the baby definitely be a girl? That's your logic question for today. Today we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about Google censorship. They just had some hearings in the House or the Senate. I can't remember where they had their hearings, but I watched one of them, and I watched a little bit of one of them, just a little bit, enough to be annoyed. And it was the Ted Cruz and Dennis Prager part of that thing that they were doing there in Washington, I suppose it was. Ted Cruz came on, and he brought some good examples of what shouldn't air on YouTube. Obvious, time of death, and putting someone's face up that's going to die or something like that. That's all stuff that's common sense. Hello, Orange Partisan. That's stuff that's common sense. And he brought the woman above into the Senate, and she talked about her daughter's the incident with her daughter and everything. But the obvious follow-up to that was Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager was saying that he was being censored on YouTube, and I find that hard to believe, because the logic that falls behind that was Dennis Prager was spamming YouTube. He got $5 million from the Heritage Foundation, I think it was, and then he took that money and he spent it into advertising on I had two lesbos at work have a baby. Of course it's a girl, huh? Logic predicts that it would be a girl. But that's not logic. I asked that because we're going to get into abortion and men's abortion rights later, and the idea that trans lesbian or trans was brought up at as well. Wookiee Lives Matter turned me on to that. So I was thinking about that last time they mentioned it. But the first thing we're going to talk about is Dennis Prager and the way he looks at the YouTube censorship. Now, Dennis Prager was censored because he was spamming everybody. Let me fix this camera a little bit. Yeah, there we go. So you can see my whole body instead of half my body. So Dennis Prager was complaining that he was not able to spam by the Heritage Foundation everybody, and that was his idea of censorship. So he wants to be able to spam everybody and get his message out, and that would be a matter. And I often went to the Judas. If you have money, does it make it okay? If the Heritage Foundation is sponsoring your specific message, should you be able to spam it out? No, YouTube says no. You can't spam. We get a lot of spamming towards us in Mgtow, and they will shut that down in a minute. But that was Dennis Prager's idea. So the logic went from, and this was funny to me when I look at that, one of those palms down, "Oh, America" statements, that I look at Ted Cruz talking to this woman right before it that says her daughter's image and of her time of death, her murder or whatever it was spammed all over the internet. And yes, that's wrong. We all know that's wrong. We all share sensibilities about what's right and what's right and what's wrong with things. We all share those sensibilities. I know that's wrong, but the obvious follow-up to that was not Dennis Prager saying that he wants the right to spam everybody and get his Christian message out by the Heritage Foundation, and that's his idea of censorship. He wants to be able to, he wants to force his message in. And what they were saying, and it's a P to Q question. It boils down to a P to Q thing. If we what they were saying, we want the ability on the right hand, on the left hand, to take people down that we find offensive. And on the other hand, we want the ability at the same time to push millions and millions of suggestions out there, probably billions of suggestions, that you watch Dennis Prager because he's the authority on right and wrong. I thought that was so wrong. I thought there's a P to Q argument, just like the P to Q argument. If you didn't hear my question today, if two lesbians have a baby, is the baby guaranteed to be a girl? It's just a simple P to Q logic, and you'll find that no, it doesn't guarantee that. That's scientific. Scientific philosophy would be empiricalism suggests that no, that's not going to happen. There's no guarantee that baby will be a girl, but in their special minds. Yes, that's a guarantee. So we move along to Victor started talking about this earlier about abortion rights and everything, and there was a little discussion. So I wanted to follow up. What I wanted to see more in, and they said one of the state's congressmen brought that up. The congressman or something. He's maybe a billionaire or a congressman. Billionaires and congressmen equal nowadays? If you got a lot of money, your vocabulary is worth more. I don't know. That's another P to Q question. But yeah, we got a lot of billionaires running and and that's fine. And I think if they have the money to do that, even though they may be unpopular, they can run in now. But I was thinking, well, they have the question: the trans lesbian should trans people have the right to abort? And I thought, well, that's a great question, but that comes under more of a metaphysical question, which is the Mgtow question too. The Mgtow question is, should a male be able to abort, financially abort, or even vanity abort? Since 74% of abortions are either vanity abortions by women or financial reason abortions. If you can't, in my P to Q logic that does run to a truth, says this: people that don't want to be parents make bad parents. People that don't want to be parents make bad parents. That means a male that does not want to be a father would make a bad father. So why force him to be a father? He has the right to. You have two sections. Actually, women have four things maybe. 4 things or 3 things that they go through. Yes is yes is a form of abortion. No is no is a form of abortion. They have birth control. They have actual abortion. And then they have what's called Moses laws. You leave the baby at the hospital. No one will ever ask you a question. Someone's going to run up and go, "You don't want that baby? I'll take that baby." And I often want to hang around at a hospital like, "Hey, lady, you don't want that baby? I'll take that baby. I'm going to make it into a football player. He can come live with me. Is it a boy? I'll take 2 of them because I really want 2 babies. I'd love to have 2 boys right now that I could finish off my life and make them into football players and baseball players. And I would do a better job. I think after 3 kids, I'm like pretty good at it now. So I know everything right to do this time, but there are Moses laws, and you can leave them at the hospital. Who gets it? They're not going to let me run up and just grab one of them. They don't have a give a baby, take a baby big bin. You just drop a baby into it, and it's like give a baby, take a baby. It's like the coin changer at the convenience store. Give a penny, take a penny. Yeah, I know you guys get it. But yeah, I wish there was, man. I would go. Every Mgtow would be like, hey, if you can give a baby, take a baby. I'm running down there and getting a couple of those things. And but it's about choice, and it's more seriously about a male choice too, and that's the way Mgtows look at it. We're men. We can't look at it any other way than, hey, what about my right to choose? And my right to choose is important, and they want to give trans people the right to choose too, which would be the same argument. So if I want an abortion, if I identify as a trans lesbian, like TFN says, I'm a trans lesbian. I like the same things lesbians like. I mean, they like girls. I like girls. They like cargo pants. I like cargo pants. They like dressing up like post office people. I like post office uniforms too. I like tool belts and I like working on things just like lesbians. So I guess I'm a trans lesbian. We like the same thing. And so if I identify as a trans lesbian, do I have the rights to abort then? That would be my question. And I think they would see that as too far. But the question was asked, and this has always been right up my alley of argument. As a male, do I get to abort? And yeah, I think I do. Let me just stop and say hello. Hello, a boy named Gilroy. Hello, Taryn. Hello, Orange Partisan. Hello, Victor. Hello, everybody. I want to give the shout out to Victor too. Victor does a great job. He's starting to do chats, and that's great. That's great for the community that Victor does that. The community has been suffering lately, and we all noticed that. Actually, for the monk community has been suffering the most because we take the most attacks. The Mgtow community in general doesn't take a whole lot of attacks, but the monk community seems to get it from all sides, every which way. That goes back to an article I posted years ago that the most discriminated people in the world is, look at my avatar, Group X. Group X is the most discriminated people in the world. You know why? Because Group X represents celibacy. It represents asexuality. It represents, I will not talk about that. The biggest crime in the world that you can do to either the breeders or the both of them are the same thing. The PUAs and the breeders are the same things. The trans lesbians and the feminists, they're all same things. They're all breeders. And the only reason that you would get discriminated by all the groups, every single group, is if you decided not to breed. And that's Group X. Article, you can look up the article. I'll put the article in the low bar later that you can go read about this. And it's actually discrimination at a rate of slightly over. It comes slightly over the people that get beat up every day. Violence against, say, disabled people. Disabled people have the most, even though you'll hear that feminists and women get beat up all the time, the actual statistics in that is 1 in 30, 32 in 1,000 or something like that. And in men, it's slightly higher. Men get violence at a rate of 1 in 34 in 1,000. The people that get violence towards them the most in the society is, if you didn't include our Group X, the people that get violence towards them the most is disabled people. It's 1 in 68. Every 1 in 68 in 1,000 disabled people will get stolen from, beat up. They will have a whole bunch of horrible things happening because they can't mentally defend themselves. Being able to mentally defend yourself is a great skill, and it's what Mgtow does all the time. We do what I call like mental judo. Now, a Mgtow to get into any violent altercation is going to be very low. I've never seen a Mgtow get actually in a physical violent. I've been around here a long time too, because we do our mental judo very well. That means we're not retarded. We're not blue pill people. We're not in the segment of people that have violence come towards us, unless you count dog bites. And then I got my spray today. This is my spray. I chose the dog spray and not the bear spray for the dogs in the neighborhood. But the other group that actually has the highest amount of violence towards them in the society is Group X, and that's why I choose that avatar right there. I made the avatar. The avatar is my property. It indicates it indicates asexual and people that are celibate in the society, because people that are celibate in this society and people that are asexual in society, we violate every rule. We say, hey, we're not going to act like you people. We're not breeders. We're not humping on trees. We're not humping on dolls. We're not humping on each other. We're not humping on children. We're not humping on dogs. We're not doing that stuff. And it starts the argument with the monk Mgtow. The monk Mgtow is the guy that, hey, I'm not humping a doll. I'm not looking at children. A matter of fact, I have no sexual preference at all. And that means, and they'll go, what, are you gay? And I said, I just said I had no sexual preference at all. And they don't get that point. And it's always been don't ask, don't tell with me. You don't ask me those questions, and I will never tell you about those things that I've done in the past. And that starts the monk's etiquette. The monk's etiquette starts with that very question. You don't ask me, and I don't tell you. You don't try to decide what I am in this world, and I won't try to tell you what you should be in this world. We do a very logical, centrist sort of a good-natured theme on Mgtow. It makes us better people. When we take those deep introspections in our lives, we can look at these absurdities that we see all around us, and we become better people by being Mgtows. We figured out a lot of the questions for a lot of the social, we figured out a lot of the answers for a lot of the social questions and everything. It's simple logic. It's simple P to Q logic. And we do it. We do it at a moment's notice. We learn how to do it. It becomes quickly. We do those things, and I go, oh, that's silly. And then we start seeing the milk apple. What SFM would talk about the milk apple in the world. Milk apple is simply two things that don't mix is milk apple. Absurdities. We see the absurdities of life. And then we look out at the news, and then the news actually, it starts driving us crazy, because once we start seeing absurdities, you can't stop seeing absurdities. And when I was looking at Dennis Prager and Ted Cruz going over, what went to my mind, the obvious next step to scientifically quantify your idea about censorship and Google and everything was to go from this lady's daughter died and they pasted her all over the internet, which is wrong, to Dennis Prager saying that Christians should be able to fucking just spam the fuck out of us. That was the obvious next step, Ted Cruz. You idiot. Christ. I mean, you see shit like that and your head just wants to explode. It's called recursiveness. If you haven't never done logical positivism just says that, okay, one triangle plus one triangle is true. It runs to a true. It runs to two. It says, but the only thing that makes that a true statement is that there's two analytical things that happen. A triangle is a triangle, and it's analytical, and it never will be anything else than a triangle. Plus another triangle is a triangle, and it will never be anything but a triangle. And it's trivial. It's what we call trivial, but it means that you have two of those. Now you can have subsets and subgroups underneath that. You can have one subset of a subgroup. You all know the math, and 1 plus 1 isn't necessarily 2 if I have a subset in a group and I have a subset in a group. But to make these things scientifically correct, and empirical logic would say you got they'll do alpha, lambda, beta, all those things, sigma, all those things, and they'll add them up and they'll give them spots and everything. But what I do is one of 1, 1 of 2, 1 of 3, 1 of 4. And them are integers. I do integers. Everything in there has to be like an integer. I put a series of numbers in there. I add them up. And at the end, it all becomes recursive logic. It's all the same thing. So if you have one room, one triangle, it represents a room or a square. You can do this with a square. And it means that if you have one square and that square is a room and it's filled with apples and they're all apples, you can count up all those integers, and that's the amount of integers at the end. It may be 1,500 apples, but that runs to a true because they're all what Descartes would say are the same things. Now in logic, when we start going out into in logic, when we start going out into linguistics, and you have to start looking at the same things, and it's what I say, logical positivism predicts that we stay on the same field. We can't go from fields which they call intersectionality. Intersection, that's where I tried to explain intersectionality one day, but nobody was listening. Intersectionality says I'm going to go from the biological to the mathematics. I'm going to go from dogs to cats. You have to stay on the field. Now, empirical logic would also mention that you have alpha, beta, lambda, and those can be integers to mark your sections, and then it becomes logic from that, the sum of, the sigma of all that. If you know how to do this stuff, it's very helpful in mathematics and trigonometry, and trying to figure out scientific facts, like Einstein would write. He would write the sum of this equals Jenninger's theory about, and then they would all look like crazy numbers and everything, but that's staying on the same recursive field, and it's called recursiveness. Then that's what Ted Cruz did today, shows me that he's not a very analytical person, and Mgtows are very analytical about their thoughts. We stay on the same field. If I'm talking about abortion, I'm going to talk about abortion rights for men. I'm going to talk about abortion rights for women. I'm going to talk about abortion rights for trans people. There is nothing that's going to take, and the thing is, we're all under the same head group, like them triangles that I was trying to say, of people, human beings. We're all human beings under that triangle. It's all a triangle. We're all human beings. Recursively, we all are under, but our laws sometimes dissect. Our laws a lot of the time sub-dissect people into different parts and pieces. And this is where the argument, well, what is a dog? The dog is a sum of all of its pieces, its tail, its paws, its jaws and everything. And that's positive logicalism playing out for you. If it's a dog, it's a dog. We all know it's a dog because it's logical, because it's got a fuzzy face, it's got big eyes, it's got a tongue that wags, it's got a tail, it's got 4 legs, it's a pedophore, and it looks like a dog. So it's a dog. And if we start adding dogs, we can't add dogs and cats, because cats are a different sort of creature. Now, staying on the field is like that. If we're going to talk about dogs, we talk about dogs. We can't go, but my cat acts like this. What the fuck does that have to do with what we were talking about? I get this all the time in life. Even at parties and everything, 2 guys will be sitting there talking about Ford GTOs, or not Ford GTOs. Well, he did have a GTO, but it's not like Ford Fusions. How they like Ford Fusions. And the next guy I go on, he goes, man, I like Dodge Darts. It's like, we weren't talking about Dodge Darts, ass. We were talking about Ford Fusions. And you get that a lot in society. People do this all over the place. People do this with everything in life. And I think when we start doing logical positivism, I talked a little bit about it yesterday. I talked about Watson's laws. Watson's laws, you got the 4 cards, and then you can see how things play out in the 4 cards. And the actual best answer is you have to check your conclusion. How can you check your conclusion? You have to put something that's wrong up to see if it's right. That's what it says. If you want to know, detectives do this a lot. Detectives do this in a form. When I was a private detective, we do this in a form where we want to know if there's confirmation bias in our decision. And that's the second form of Watson's cards. Confirmation bias was the second form of Watson's cards. It goes like this. If I got this hypothesis about this person right here, Mickey M. Mickey M broke the law by doing this, and I want to see if I'm drawing up confirmation bias. I take Mickey M out and I put my favorite baseball player in there, and it's Mickey Mantle. And it says Mickey Mantle was in a bank and robbed this bank, but we don't have no fingerprints, and I can't really tell if it was Mickey Mantle. Would that make sense? No, it stops making sense when you put your favorite baseball player in there. Hank Aaron, did Hank Aaron steal the if all the facts lead to Hank Aaron stealing the orange juice at the convenience store, then yes, all the facts said that. But most of the time we do confirmation bias. So we have to exclude confirmation bias. And we do this thing called the white shoe. You throw a white shoe into things. Did the white shoe do it? We've seen a great example of this in Folly de Family. It was a sci-fi thing with who was them two the alien chasers back in the 90s. The story about the alien chasers. He was doing an episode about Folly de Family and the craziness of a whole family. How in a Folly de One, there's Folly de Two, there's Folly de Fairs. There's also how two people can start thinking things that aren't really true. And the story went that he went into the house and the guy, it was a very short segment. The guy thought that somebody was putting white powder, which was making him sick, into his his shoes. He thought the aliens were doing it, and that's the white shoe. Aliens were coming into his house and putting white powders in his shoes, and it just turned out his wife was putting just some shoe stuff in to make his shoes smell better. But he couldn't see that. He was working on a delusion, and the delusion was a white shoe. It was like aliens. Some aliens were coming into my house and putting white powder in my shoes, and Men in Black were doing this. It was like, and it was just a short segment. X-Files, that's what it was. It was just a short segment, but that explains a lot about logic in our society, how people don't do logic and they don't stay on the same field. And I often mention this, and I often wanted to explain why I say this thing, staying on the field in Mgtow. You have to stay on the field in Mgtow. It's those triangles. Those triangles mean a lot. Your preconception is of how you state the argument, and your theory means a lot to the argument and the theory. And you can't go off the field after that. And we see this with a conspiracy theory. We all spot conspiracy theories a lot. A conspiracy theory in my eyes is a white shoe. Somebody threw in a white shoe on a conversation. The white shoe comes from the Raven argument. All ravens are black. But what if I have something behind my back and I said, well, if it was a stick, if I got a stick, you want to see it? Well, that's not a raven. Okay, I got something behind my back. It's black. What are you going to think? All ravens are black. You're going to say, oh, that's a raven. I got something behind my back. It's white. Well, that's not a raven. Is it a white raven? Would I like to see it? Yes, of course I'd like to see it, a white raven, because that's what I was searching for. And it goes back to Watson's cards. Watson's card says, I want to see something that's untrue to prove that was something that was true was true. It's P to Q logic. You have to see a false to know a true. So now that I gave you your logic lesson for today, we can go back to Ted Cruz, and we can even insert this in. My thoughts today we'll insert P to Q logic to the trans lesbian abortion thing. Should trans lesbians and abortion have the right to abort? Should men have the right to abort? Oh, I'm tripping, man. Okay, there we go. Well, that was trippy. Yeah. Well, we all fall under the same logical statement. We're all triangles. All humans are triangles. So whether it's men, whether it's women, whether it's trans, it doesn't matter. If you throw in the thing and you say trans lesbians or lesbians are different than regular human people, you're doing a white shoe. You're just throwing in an illogical argument or something so you can test your hypothesis about whether the true statement is every person. If we have abortion laws, then every person in America should be able to have abortion laws, not just a certain segment. There's not a certain segment that's different than the rest of the segment. Women aren't special. They're not these special creatures. Sometimes we say this in Mgtow all the time, where they're not the special angels. They're not special creatures. They're all triangles. They all have V's. We're all human beings. And they don't deserve special rights, and people don't deserve special rights. I often explain this. People don't deserve special rights because they take advantage of special rights. And I see this in the example of bathrooms. We have handicap bathrooms. Now, do you guys know the actual rules about the handicap bathrooms? You have every right to use the handicap bathroom. As I go into handicap, I do this on purpose because I had an argument with a guy once. Having a handicap bathroom that has wheelchair accessibility doesn't make you special. It just gives you access to the same thing everybody gets. It doesn't put you ahead of the line. That's what special privileges for special people do. They think it puts them ahead of the line. If we can figure this thing out, where if there's 3 people standing in line for the bathrooms, there's 2 bathrooms. One's a handicap bathroom with handicap accessibility, and one's a regular one. The handicap bathrooms, I'm the next person in line, but I'm not handicapped. Does he get to go around me? No, he has to sit and wait like everybody else in society. That's equality. I get to use the handicap bathroom. Even though I'm not handicapped, it just means the bathroom is accessible to him. It's handicap accessibility. It doesn't make him special and put him in front of me in the line. But we have laws in our society that everybody thinks it makes them special. They get to go to the front of the line. No, they don't. You go against it and start throwing the laws around. It's a Mgtow reach around or partisan. Yes. No, we're not going to get into what a reach around is. But yeah, you're not going to, well, that's off the subject. That's off the field right now. Handicap accessibility laws just means they have the right to access it after they wait in the same line that every person. Now, abortion laws are different. It gives special people special rights. That's the problem with abortion laws. When you start looking at the Q's and the P's and the triangles of this, we're all triangles. We're all triangles. And once you take a triangle and start adding it with a square, it comes out to be a false statement because it's not analytical. It's not scientifically correct at that point. Now you can go ask any logician, any person with logic, any person that does scientific philosophy, and he'll tell you that same thing. He'll tell you that same thing. But we have laws that aren't very logical nowadays. And that's my arguments with a lot of these things. I want abortion just because I should have, by rights of being human, I should have the right to financially abort or vanity abort. I just don't want a kid. I don't make a very good father. The PDQ statement is that people that don't want to be fathers don't make good fathers. You can't force them into being good fathers. You can force them into be good providers, but provider is not a father. That means you, when you look at the linguistic analytics of the paper, they would have to say, no, you are now a provider. That's all you are. And provider is synonymous with slave. So they can't say that. They have to ditch around the question and say father. Now, father is pater, the legal father guardian, which is the pater, which is payer terminal. That's how they get around that. It's anti-logical. But the logical statement on these things is people that don't want to be parents make bad parents. That's why we have abortion. That's why you have 4 or 5 things that you can do. You can even wear a condom or use birth control properly and not have babies. And that's what Mgtow is saying. Please don't have the babies if you don't want to have the babies. Erupt. Boom. Booyah. Boom. There's your logic questions, answers for today on all those things. That's why philosophy is so important to Mgtow. That's why I push philosophy. It's not just certain kinds of philosophy will apply in Mgtow. We don't have a philosophy in Mgtow that's quantitative. And that's what we have to work on, a Mgtow philosophy that's quantitative, like I just explained. But no one wants to work on it. Everybody wants to do the metaphysical philosophy. And that's when you see the argument anti-feminist against feminist, this and that, and this whole metaphysical argument, Pierce would say, is garbage. It's not very logical. Once here in Mgtow we start putting down the logical argument, the whole world will not be able to argue with us once it's logical empiricism. But nobody wants to talk to me about that. Nobody wants to go over these things with me because it's too hard on their delicate little brains. It's easier to just be casually cruel on the internet to some women that you don't even know and say, man, I'm doing my part being a Mgtow. No, you're not. Mgtow's about more than that. It's about a philosophy. It's about becoming a monk. It's about understanding why these things logically work. Why these things logically work in the Mgtow world. We used to talk about this all the time and why logic was so important. We have to learn logic. We have to take these courses. We have to do these things to help us off through this so we can see the empirical truths about things. Now, anytime in science, there's always going to be the next question. It's always going to work to the next question. What is the next fact that's coming along? That's what me and MV were talking about. We get into Kuhn's science is changing. Everything's changing. We're learning a lot more about biology of the female. We're learning a lot more about biology of males. We're learning a lot more about science. That changes things. The paradigm changes at that point. And it's up to Mgtow in each and every one of us to keep up with the paradigms that are changing. And they're not metaphysical paradigms, and they're not political paradigms. They're very scientific paradigms that had to be rearranged about how we think about the metaphysical. Is the metaphysical logical? Is that a part of philosophy? No, I don't think so anymore. It's getting to the point where religion is ridiculous. It just screws us all up. It makes us believe things that aren't real. Real flying things in the air that you can't generally see. You just kind of feel they're there. No, there are some things you can feel is there. Like all people generally agree on what is right and what is wrong. What makes you happy? What makes you unhappy? We can generally we can get an idea of happiness, and it's a metaphysical thing. We can get an idea of what makes people happy. Food makes people happy. Epicurus. That's what the philosophy of Epicureanism is. Things that you eat, you're happy. Once I stop eating, will I be happy? Will life be worth living? Those kind of questions. So when I get too old to chew food, that's what Epicurus was asking. Epicurus, look it up. He was an ancient philosopher. That's where Epicurean delights come from. He invented hedonism. So we ask all these questions. We ask the metaphysical. We ask the logical. We use simple examples so we can spot them in life. And it's a Mgtow's duty to do these things, to be logical about these questions. Maybe go read some Kant and get a general idea about logical positivism, logical empiricism. Go look at a few of those things. That's what we Mgtows do. We're fascinated with life. I'm fascinated myself with group dynamics. It's been all my life. The first courses I took in college was of group dynamics at Richmond University. It fascinates me, the study of people, the movement of people, the study of biology and people, why people move from here to here, why people do things the way they do at stop signs and traffic. And it goes down to how traffic moves and why crowds move in a certain direction. It's fascinating and it's scientific and it explains things about us. We go learn those things because we're Mgtows. because we have questions about the world. We've been told lies all of our life by religious people, by people that believed things about women that were not true. And they told you these things that were not true. Are they all special angels? No, they're not special angel group in them triangles and circles and squares. The P doesn't have, the Q doesn't have a special angel group. They can't, there's no connection between us that they call pair bonding. That's all garbage made up by traditional white males because they want you to follow down a religialistic queuing process where at the end it ends with divorce, which aids society and puts men into slavery. So that's my logic lesson for today, and that's my Friday lesson for today. I hope you all enjoyed it. The end of all that argument was we're not slaves. Men are not slaves. There's no special group of women that are represented by the A, the angels. We're all the same people. When we start talking about logic, we start talking about our laws, we must look at them logically. Do men have the right to abort? Analytically, scientifically, yes. I simply can't afford it. I wouldn't make a good father. I don't want to be a father, so I wouldn't make a good father. And you can't force that upon a person. When we hear all these things out in society that fathers are bad fathers, well, did he want to be a father or did you force him to be a father? Slaves that don't want to be slaves make bad slaves. Ones that want to volunteer their body for the work make good workers. If you want to volunteer for that, you would make a good worker for the gynocentric. But slaves that don't want to be slaves make bad slaves. And that would be what I would tell Congress if I was in front of Congress. Men that don't want to be fathers don't make good fathers. And slaves that don't want to be slaves make bad slaves. And it's logical. There's no other groups in that. We're just human beings. And human beings don't make good slaves or pets. Dougie makes a good pet, and that's who I'm going to go check on pretty soon because I'm sure he's up to something no good. It's very hot out there. He does not want to go outside. I tried going out into the garage today and work a little. I couldn't find my bearing kit. I was searching all around for my bearing kit, and it's not in the garage, and I don't know where it's at. So I had to reorder a new one. I came in, and I'm just like, I'm going to sit around on a Friday afternoon and drink a few Faygo ginger ales and watch some TV and probably talk to a few Mgtows. And that's good enough for me, a nice average life. Because I don't want to be Atlas. I don't want to be Sisyphus. I don't want to hold the world on my back. I don't want to be a slave rolling a boulder up a hill to an endless pursuit of having it roll down every night when I go to sleep. I make a bad slave. I do, because I'd always reject it. And that's your duty as a Mgtow. Be a bad slave. Be the rebel. I think I gave you instructions to read chapters 4 through 8 in the Rebel. And I don't know how many of you ever did it. Read chapters 4 through 8 in the Rebel. Read the whole book. It's a great book. It should be the first book you read when you enter Mgtow. And Camus will explain everything. But for now, I'm going to go do the things I need to do. And that's not a lot right now, and I'm happy about that, and I am enjoying my life, and I hope you are too. I hope everything's great. And most of all, Mgtows, thanks for being a Mgtow. Mgtow.